Good morning. Very warm welcome to the webinar today on integrating nature into cities, living labs, and the water sensitive design. My name is Suresh Rohila. I am Associate Professor at University of Bradford and also the Vice Chair for IWA Working Group on Water Sensitive Design and Planning. We are organizing this webinar series, and this webinar is part of the series and the third webinar today. Next, please. Before we proceed on to the webinar, I would like to share some housekeeping rules. This webinar will be recorded and made available on demand on the IWA Connect Plus platform for the members with relevant information. The speakers are responsible for securing copyright permissions for any work that they present, which they are not legal copyright holder. The opinions, hypotheses, conclusions, or recommendations contained in the presentations and other materials are the sole responsibility of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect IWA opinion. Next. Further continuing on the housekeeping rules, there is a chat box which you would see. Please use this chat box for general requests and for interactive activities. The question and answer box, please use this to send questions to the panelists. We will answer these questions. And attendees, your microphones are muted. You have to raise your hand. You cannot raise your hand, so you have to put your questions into Q&A box. To give you a brief overview, today's webinar will be moderated by myself, along with Mariam Imani. She's the chair for the working group. And we have two more speakers, Akash Ingorani from Oasis Design India and Kirsty Carden, University of Cape Town, South Africa. Next, please. And the brief agenda for today's webinar is we will start with introduction to the webinar, and then after this brief introduction, we will move on to the first speaker, talking about South African case study, and then move on to the case study from India. This will be followed with question, answer, and panel discussion, and you would have a chance to have some reflections from the speakers on the questions, and then we will have closing remarks. Next, please. To give you some webinar information, the aim of today's webinar would be to explore how integrating nature into urban systems can support climate resilience in Global South context, with particular emphasis on locally grounded, culturally informed, and practice-based approaches. Today's webinar brings together insights from applied living lab initiatives and indigenous or ancestral water knowledge systems to demonstrate how diverse ways of understanding and managing water can inform more inclusive and sustainable urban futures. Together, these perspectives aim to bridge scientific innovation and ancestral wisdom in water management. Further, the perspectives aim to promote context-specific and socially inclusive nature-based solutions in the Global South and demonstrate how co-creation and knowledge pluralism can strengthen climate adaptation strategies. We would like to inspire through this webinar pathways for resilient, water-sensitive, and nature-integrated cities. Next, please. Now I'll pass it on to my colleague Mariam Imani to say a few words about the working group.
Thank you so much, Suresh. Good day, everybody, from wherever you're joining us. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Mariam Imani, and I'm an Associate Professor of Water Systems Engineering at Anglia Ruskin University in the UK. As Suresh mentioned, this is the third webinar our working group is organizing. I have introduced this working group in other webinars, so if you have joined us in previous ones, possibly that's a repeat, but our working group is called Alliance for Water Sensitive Design and Planning in IWA, and is about slightly over 2 years that this group has been formed. And the vision in this group, as you can see from the title, is to maximize multidisciplinary conversation and collaboration in the context of water sensitive design and planning. Also, we have a mission to maximize these conversations between global North and South, as well as South-South. So this is pretty much been the aim when we organize the webinars, we bring the speakers from both global north and south together, again, to share their knowledge and experiences in the context of water-sensitive design and planning, nature-based solutions, and so on. Also, we have members in our steering committee from young water professionals, again, from different continents, joining us, representing their continents, their perspectives, and they're collaborating with us. We launched our working group last year in Water Congress in Thailand. If you happened to be there, we had a workshop there. So we launched and introduced extensively the purpose of this group and what we aim to achieve. I've put the 2 QR code on the screen, as you can see. If you're an IWA member, you can join and visit the page. Also, this working group also is a member of the IWA Nature-Based Solutions Cluster that sort of launched recently, and I think in Water Congress in Thailand, if you were there, officially launched. So Suresh and I currently representing our working group in the cluster as well. Moving forward, we welcome more members to our group, more conversation, and more collaboration. Suresh, hand over back to you.
Thank you, Mariam, for a brief, quick overview about the working group. And now I take this opportunity to invite the first speaker for today's webinar, Dr. Kirsty Carden. She works with University of Cape Town, has over 3 decades of experience. She has been working with university as a researcher since 2004, and she has taken over recently the directorship for the Interdisciplinary Research Institute at University of Cape Town called Future Water. So, Kirsty, we invite you to present your case, and you have 22 minutes.
Great. Thank you very much, Suresh, and good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. I'm going to tell you a little bit today about some of the living laboratories that we use in our research as part of the Future Water Institute at the University of Cape Town, particularly in building climate resilience through the use of nature-based solutions. And I'm going to start off with a little bit of background to why we're doing this, certainly in our context here in South Africa, which is fairly similar to elsewhere in the world, particularly in the global south, where we consider the cumulative impacts of development and climate in what we are seeing in urban areas through the destruction of environments, through flood impacts, through the putting in too many impermeable surfaces throughout cities. So really encouraging increased runoff and increased pollution conditions. So in South Africa particularly, we do observe the urban stream syndrome quite significantly because of our informal settlements and the numbers of people that live in informal settlements. So the flashier hydrograph that comes from this increased amounts of rainfall falling on impermeable surfaces, of course, results in massive amounts of pollution in the environment. And this is where what we have seen, the pursuit of the engineered solution to exploit water systems, so the piping of water into settlements without proper drainage and sanitation, comes at the expense of longer-term water security because of the impact of vast quantities of untreated wastewater that enter the environment. So Cape Town's situation in particular, you've probably all heard of Day Zero. It was the time when we very, very nearly approached a time when taps would have had to be turned off. The accumulated daily rainfall at one of the main dams in our water supply system in Cape Town during 2016 to 2018 became extremely low. The dam reached levels of about 11.5%, making it very difficult to withdraw water. And so Day Zero was a possibility. The city was having to consider how to deal with this, how to create and provide water for its almost 5 million residents. And they had to come up with some plans, which largely included demand reduction and thinking about different ways to manage water in our city space. So what it did do, of course, was made us think about how we could future-proof a city like Cape Town or like other urban areas in the Western Cape. And we took a lot of similar concepts from the Cooperative Research Center for Water Sensitive Cities ideas around water sensitive urban design. And we tried to put that into a framing and context for the South African situation. And of course, what it largely meant was utilizing that concept of water sensitive design, but into what was really needed as multifunctional infrastructure, so this hybrid between centralized and decentralized that could not only meet basic needs, which is very important in a country like South Africa, but also enhance aspirational needs through blue-green infrastructure, through building capabilities, human capabilities and well-being, considering things like livelihood creation and managing diverse water resources. So not only depending on a surface water system that we had in the for the city of Cape Town, but thinking about making use of, for example, stormwater and treated wastewater and other sources of water that we could build into our resource mix. So as a brief definition, and I'm quite sure most of you know this, but water sensitive design is seen as the process, and it encompasses all aspects of integrated urban water cycle management. So this idea that we need to think about water supplies, sewerage, stormwater management, even things like solid waste management in one holistic view, so that we can actually build it into urban design and planning of cities and towns at all scales. So it's not necessarily a set of solutions and measures, but rather a process and philosophy to optimize both water management and urban design objectives. And it provides multiple benefits and opportunities, particularly in respect of building resilience. And then if water sensitive design is the process, water sensitive cities would be your destination. These are cities that are sustainable, resilient, productive, and livable through this combination of physical infrastructure, governance arrangements, and social engagement. And they're generally green. They're blue-green cities with nature-based solutions for water treatment, with green buildings and roofs, with waterway naturalization, flood resilience, things like groundwater management through managed aquifer recharge. So there is this intentional water sensitivity that is built into the design of a city. So what happened post the drought in Cape Town is that they developed a new water strategy. So this was in 2019, where they put together 5 commitments. And obviously the first are around the provision of basic services in a city that has a large number of people living in informal settlements. But the fifth commitment is the transition to a water-sensitive city by 2040. And in there, the city has committed to facilitating that transition over a period of time, to build in diverse water resources, to make optimal use of stormwater, and to actually consider the urban waterways for purposes of flood control, aquifer recharge, water reuse, and recreation. And they're doing this through an implementation plan that includes incentives and regulatory mechanisms, as well as obviously investments in new infrastructure. But in order to do this, there needs to be an enabling environment. So how do we ground this water-sensitive design or water-sensitive city concept in a country like South Africa? Well, we have to start with incorporating it into policy and consolidating what knowledge we do have, and creating knowledge and data sharing platforms that provide us with the opportunity to identify and support champions, to build learning alliances so that we have this co-design and social learning around this relatively new paradigm. But we also need demonstration projects at scale. We need to be able to show, particularly to politicians and decision makers, why they should be investing in blue-green infrastructure or in nature-based solutions or in this concept of water-sensitive design, which all essentially mean the same thing. And so how we demonstrate that, and I'm going to share a couple of examples with you from our Future Water Research Institute at the University of Cape Town, is that we have what we call living laboratories. So these are spaces where we can do more than lab scale research onto how things work in the real world, And some of these that we've looked at are around waterways and public health, for example. We also have a significant number of research projects focused on managed aquifer recharge and groundwater management, particularly looking at contaminants of emerging concern. And then we have two other projects. One is at a demonstration site called the Water Hub, and the other is a stormwater site in Mitchell's Plain. It's a suburb outside of Cape Town or within Cape Town, where I will explain what we've done through the living labs in those spaces. So the PAUSE project, it stands for Pathways to Water Resilient South African Cities. We've all got clever acronyms for our research projects. This is a project that was born out of the Cape Town Day Zero crisis, where we really wanted to consider whether we could use stormwater infrastructure, the existing stormwater infrastructure, of which there is a significant amount in Cape Town. We have upwards of 850 stormwater detention ponds as part of our flood alleviation infrastructure. We wanted to know whether we could retrofit stormwater ponds and use those to both link stormwater runoff to water supply, but also to enhance that environment around the stormwater pond with water-sensitive design elements and landscape-based solutions that could start really building these multifunctional benefits that come from water-sensitive design and nature-based solutions. So what we did with this, just move this forward, is we selected a stormwater pond in Mitchell's Plain. There you can see a school in the background. We specifically selected a pond that had an anchor close to it that we could align our activities with, and we also did quite a lot of education activities together with the school. This particular stormwater pond has 2 inlets and 1 outlet. Before the retrofitting took place, the stormwater largely short-circuited straight through the pond into the stormwater system, so there was very seldom any ponding of water in the system. But even so, this pond was designed to not keep water in it. It is a detention pond, not a retention pond, so it only holds water for a very short period of time in the midst of a heavy storm. So what we decided to do in collaboration with local residents, teams of local residents who did the co-design and co-construction with us, we built an infiltration swale in front of the 2 inlets to the pond, which then acted as a means to hold back water coming into the pond and allow it to infiltrate slowly into the groundwater system. So you can see here in this picture, after construction, we also cleared out the inlets and we added rock check dams as litter traps in the infiltration swale itself. You can see here how the water's coming into the pond. It's held in this forebay area, so there is some sediment that drops out at that point and the capture of litter. And then it stays in the infiltration swale with 2 weirs on either end to allow it to overflow if it reaches a certain height, and then slowly infiltrates into the groundwater underneath the pond. And what we found after this key first phase is that retrofitting really worked quite well, that it did increase infiltration by about 15%, even without abstraction, but that future scenarios with groundwater abstraction through managed aquifer recharge and recovery could result in stormwater harvesting and increased infiltration to the tune of about 110%. Importantly, we also found that the stormwater was being treated. The retrofitted ponds were significantly improving groundwater quality because of this. The stormwater coming into the site was relatively polluted, not bad. This was a formal in a settlement, so it wasn't sewage or anything like that. But it certainly did improve groundwater quality having a nature-based solution in place. But of course, it was more than that in terms of how do we keep stewarding a system like this, and how do we bring people into multifunctional infrastructure space so that it becomes an important aspect of a community and actually functions in a way that really brings those multiple benefits. So In an area like Mitchell's Plain, safety, security, and preventing land invasions becomes an important aspect. And so beautifying this space, turning it into something that becomes a community infrastructure that can be used is really important. So raising awareness, adding support for amenity and biodiversity benefits, making sure that local residents could get involved in the co-design and management and ongoing stewardship of this space, and then bringing in the education programs and potential for job opportunities or job creation through things like seed harvesting, plant nursery development, sandbag building, all sorts of other things that were part of this process of showing why this is an important space. And of course, importantly, what also happened out of this particular project is that we built a Water Resilient Cities community of practice so that we could have an ongoing conversation about why this sort of co-production around these case sites, these living laboratories, is so important, with a lot of different civil and city stakeholders of multiple disciplines and professions, and providing them with a platform to foster the sort of network building and social learning that is necessary out of this type of living lab. And that's ongoing, even though this project came to an end at the end of last year. And then very quickly, I wanted to also share with you an off-campus living lab, an urban living lab that we have just outside Cape Town. It's about 60 or 70 kilometers north of Cape Town. It's outside a little town called Franschhoek, where we were given the opportunity to retrofit decommissioned small wastewater treatment works that historically served the town of Franschhoek, but was decommissioned when they built a new wastewater treatment works for the town. It's located downstream of an informal settlement. You can see in this picture here on the slopes of the mountain an informal settlement. It's called Langrug. There are about 8,000 people living in various types of informal dwellings with very poor service provision, particularly around sanitation. And there's a small river that runs past the Langrug informal settlement through this agricultural area and past the water hub, the demonstration site that we have, where we do our experimentation, to try and see if we can use nature-based solutions to treat and clean up highly contaminated runoff from the informal settlement that comes into this river and joins the bigger Franschhoek River further downstream. So what we're doing here, and here you can see a map that shows Langrug on the side of the mountain, the small catchment of what we call the Stabiel River that comes past Langrug, and the red dot at the bottom there is the water hub. And some of the pictures show the sort of state of the river, very, very, very badly polluted with sewage, with solid waste, with general highly contaminated runoff from the informal settlement. And that runs all the way down in the river, past the water hub and through to the Franschhoek River. So what we were hoping to do is to put in nature-based solutions that were context appropriate for this particular very low income environment, easy to maintain, cost effective and scalable, and that could be used as a decentralized and passive, no electricity, no chemicals, passive water treatment solutions that we could potentially scale to other informal settlement contexts around the country. And we did this through constructed wetlands or biofiltration cells, using adsorptive substrates, using microalgal remediation and other forms of nature-based solutions. In one of the experiments, we use biochar that's produced from alien vegetation as a low-cost absorbent. This has multiple benefits in that we're repurposing invasive biomass into something that's useful. It's been shown to be an effective adsorbent, and it provides us with passive and low-maintenance treatment option. But it also gives job opportunities in a very poorly economically sourced environment, and the removal of alien vegetation also contributes to more runoff into our dam system, our surface water storage system in the Western Cape. So there really are multiple benefits that come from this. The system for this particular project here, it's 2 sets of adapted sludge drying beds that have been turned into these constructed wetlands. They have different types of media, from large stone to biochar to small stone. The river water is diverted into a storage tank. It runs through this constructed wetland treatment train. Some of the blocks are planted with plants, not all of them, and there are control blocks as well, tanks as well. That water then gets pumped into a sequential managed aquifer recharge sand filter system, and from there it goes to various project follow-on steps, which I'll share with you now. This is the biochar cell that has been put in place, and where there are, obviously you can see here, inspection chambers and where and spaces for them to take samples. At the end of it, we're utilizing or looking at where there are opportunities for reuse and uptake of contaminants of emerging concern in crops, particularly trying to understand what pharmaceuticals and other emerging contaminants are coming in this river water, and whether the nature-based solution can remove the CECs and whether they occur in the crops that are irrigated with different water sources. So trying to understand the potential human health risks associated with consuming these crops. Another project that's happened at this living lab at the Water Hub is a restoration of the river system to put back the biodiversity that is supposed to be there. So there you can see on the left here, before in 2021, the Stabile River was very poorly overrun with alien vegetation. It has now been restored with indigenous vegetation, and that also contributes to increased water quality through the river system as a whole. And then livelihood opportunities at the Water Hub are being further developed as various different projects carry on there. But one of them is around the irrigation of vegetables and soil with this treated and untreated water, so that we can study the mobility of these various different emerging contaminants. And there are link-ups with local farmers, local restaurants, local guest houses, to being able to use these vegetables and these food products in safe food environments. And then also growing cut flowers. If the water is of not significantly good enough quality, then there are other sustainable livelihood opportunities that can happen at the Water Hub. So ongoing projects, we are expanding the water treatment facilities at the Water Hub, and also looking at various different employment opportunities in agriculture and biogas generation. A biogas reactor is being installed at the Water Hub, with the potential to bring in organic waste from the town and from the Water Hub itself, from restaurants and breweries nearby, so that we can start powering various different facilities there and showing a circular and linked system around the food, energy, water nexus. And then, sorry, I need to just go back. This is a recent project where we have expanded the agriculture project. It is a local social enterprise with people from the nearby informal settlement. We're in the process of building raised food growing or agriculture beds that we will be irrigating with this expanded treatment train. And this is now, these vegetables will be supplied in bulk to the town. And lastly, another social enterprise activity that is linked to what we're doing at the Water Hub is a series of e-bikes. These are delivery bikes that will be used both to collect organic waste to bring back into the biodigester, and to also deliver the vegetables from the social enterprise that is growing on site. And I think this is my very last slide, where we're also trying to put together, or we're in the process of, it's almost complete, what's known as a green precinct at the University of Cape Town. This is seen as an important initiative to bring students into what we are trying to do at the university as a whole. We have sustainable water supply options that will be showcased here. There is a decentralized wastewater treatment facility that's a membrane bioreactor that takes sewage from two of the student residences. It gets treated on site, put through a constructed wetland system and a number of sustainable drainage options to improve its quality, and then used for toilet flushing and irrigation at another residence next to the site. What it does importantly is allows people to be part of this process, to actually understand what's going on, and for students to conduct research right on the university campus. So we're very excited about it. Future Water will be hosting and leading this process going forward. And I think that is me. And we'll give back the...
Thank you, Kirsty. Thank you. Very interesting presentation with sharing about the various interventions your group has been doing across in Cape Town and other parts of the world, including Portugal. In particular, I was interested how you are introducing the living lab concept in the university campus, where I'm sure that this will be built up in the curriculum also and linked up with that. So thank you very much for this. And now I call upon the next speaker, Akash Hingurani. Akash is an architect and urban visionary, and Akash is the founding principal of Oasis Designs International India. Akash has been working in this space for over 25 years, and he describes himself as somebody who is trying to work to mend the broken bond, and he believes that India's ancient relationship with water, the sacred rivers, the monsoon-fed lakes, and the quiet wisdom of the stepwell was never just about infrastructure. It was philosophy of living in harmony with the natural world. With these few words, Akash, I pass it on to you. You have 22 minutes to share about your project, and looking forward to your presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great being here, and welcome everybody from around the world. So like he was introducing, I mean, we look at water. Water has been something that has fascinated me since I was a kid. And as an architect today, though we are not water experts in this whole panel of experts, but we get to showcase different understanding that we keep learning from experts around the world. And our work essentially rotates around fixing cities and the problems cities are facing with climate change and water. So I'll get into my show. So that's, we believe that all our cities, right now in India are facing this problem of urban heat, flooding, and vehicular congestion, which we think can all get sorted if we start focusing on public open space. That's my team. Me and my wife, we both are the founding partners at Oasis. And we got selected as actioners for nature-oriented design for sustainable cities for the COP28 summit. And how our journey started with water, we were trying to, I mean, we do a lot of street design work, but while doing that, we thought if we could somehow help with the problem of urban flooding. So we would want to, bring all the rainwater into a natural system while fixing walking and all cycling and all the other things that we do with the street. But this is what the final product looks like when all the water from the road is actually getting into that swale and is being allowed to, kind of percolate into the ground. So while you're fixing a street, I mean, you could very easily build in these kind of facilities to ensure that the overall sustainability for the city remains, I mean, you can increase the, resilience factor by programming your open space. Similarly, we have done many projects around streets across India. One very interesting project that we worked upon, which brought more understanding about water, was this natural drain corridor in Delhi, which is about 12.5 kilometers, flowing from the ridge to the river, but unfortunately had started collecting a lot of sewage on the way. So how we could clean up the whole system and reconfigure the whole thing as a greenway for cycling and walking and connections to history, and it becoming a truly, like a public spine for the city. So these are some visualizations of what is there and what we were hoping to make those into. Uh, we got a chance to really work around wastewater treatment when we had to revive a particular lake in Delhi where there was no source of water. All the catchment areas were built up, and there was only sewage flowing next to the lake, which we thought if we can bring that, treat it with phytoremediation. And here we work with the organization called NEERI, and we managed to, all the flower beds that you see are actually part of the phytorid treatment. So the water under this flower bed is getting treated, and you can see the result of that and how we filled up the lake with treated wastewater. So the journey from how we manage stormwater on streets, what a city level system of drainage channel being repurposed, filling up a lake with treated wastewater. It kind of prepared us in a way to look at this project, which I'm going to do a deep dive on now for the Coimbatore Smart City. Now, right from the beginning, before we bid for the job, we first made up a consortium of people we could learn from in terms of water. Like I told you, we are architects, designers, and urban designers, landscape architects, but we do not have the detailed understanding of sizing up different components of wastewater treatment, for instance. Similarly, we brought in a hydrology expert to look at the overall situation, catchment areas and all, and we worked with a local architect. So while pitching for the project, we kind of had a very strong team when we went in. And the local architect, you can see us there. I was on the first site visit. I was asking him, where is the lake? And the whole place looked like that. So he said, we are standing in the lake. So, I mean, for me to imagine that this whole piece of land was actually a lake, I mean, it took some level of imagination. Then looking at the city, I mean, we realized that what we have, the whole city has come up around the river Noyal Valley. And you have the hills in a horseshoe pattern where all the water that comes down from the hills to the river was being actually, held back. And this was a historic system designed by the Chola dynasty, maybe 1,000 years back, where all the water that comes in from the hillside was collected. Each stream that you can see was collected in a lake. And then you also had anicuts on the river, which would become an extra source of water to a particular lake. So one is it's getting fed directly from the streams coming down from the hills. And the other one is that we have a connection from the river. And the third one is that it overflows into the next lake. So every lake downstream is being fed by the lake upstream. Once it fills up, and all of that water finally finds its way back into the river. So instead of just allowing the water to flow away, these people had designed a system to hold on to the water historically for irrigation and for agriculture and those kind of uses. So when we came in, we had to do a full catchment areas analysis of each lake, how many acres of land is actually draining into that particular lake through that channel. Unfortunately, what had happened was over time, these people, there were some encroachments and some slum settlements which started happening around these water channels and around the lakes, because it was not regulated. But slowly the waste of these unsewaged connections coming into the lake would create a situation where the lake started becoming polluted, and very soon it became like the backyard of the city. So we had many problems regarding, there were these beautiful spots in the city. I mean, beautiful. I'm saying beautiful because I could see like if we can transform these into something nice. But my team was like very unhappy because they had to walk through all these dirty areas. But this is a shaded kind of a area under a particular bridge, and then you have the lake on one side. The encroachments and the settlements there would tend to directly put in all the waste into the lake. So we had a tough time when we went there in the initial phases to look at all of this. Like for instance, this particular lake you can see here is completely dry. It got it into eutrophication, and we also had to do soil remediation in terms of excavating. Anyway, the brief given to us was that we have these 8 lakes, and then if we can fix them, and then also set up a an empty cycling corridor to connect all of these. So the problems, we started restoring the the canals and the overflow gates. We had to look at sewage. How do we want to treat that? We had to work with water treatment systems, so wetlands, and major surveys about bathymetry and whatever. And then we also, while talking to the local people, we realized that this city did not have too much of open space for the kids. Like I remember talking to a few kids, and they said there's only one ground and we have to, book in advance to play football. And I was like, wow. I mean, so yeah, that was the time we thought, if we are doing this lake project for them, if we are trying to, kind of open up the system, we'll definitely want to give some space for them to come out and play. Similarly, the city was supposedly the cultural capital of Tamil Nadu, one of the states in south of India, where again the lake system had not been, the potential of using that as a public open space was not something that the city had yet discovered. And of course, because it was a smart city, we had an overlay layer of the smart com. I remember once, there was this one reporter who came and asked me, "What's the smart thing you're doing for Coimbatore?" I was like, "Oh, I mean, we were not into sensors and all the technology components. We just wanted to fix the system. So we just wanted to go back and back to the basics, like how water should flow, how we should avoid erosion and pollution coming in, and how we can regenerate biodiversity, how we can create a level of thermal comfort for the city." So these were our agenda points. Now the challenge also was to explain to the client that the conventional way of how people typically deal with water bodies in India was always, all the examples that we could list out had these hard edges. And this was something that we wanted to, really not do. We wanted to experiment and do a nature-based solution like the blue-green infrastructure to come in. And what had also, so to do that, we had to study the hydrology, what I showed you earlier. And then from that hydrology, we got to know that there were some bunds, which had to hold water because this was a gravity-based system. So those bunds would be the main bunds, and the remaining bunds would be what we call ring bunds, which could be lower. Now, analysis of some of the bunds which were, blocking the view of the lake from the city, we realized that these are actually ring bunds which can be lowered. Now, to do that, we had to convince the city authorities that this has just come up because of some desilting drive. Some people desilted the lake and put all the desilted material on the edge and blocked the view of the lake from the city. So they were like big, how should I say it? I mean, doubts on whether we're going to kind of breach the band and have the whole city flooding up and things like that. So you can see this person here. Every time I look at this picture, I can't help but laugh. I mean, it was for us to have done all the calculations and then created that small breach just to show them that the levels are okay, and then finally managed to get the whole bund removed from there, and that's the team celebrating that whole one breach of the bund just to show them that the lake waters are still way below the road levels and never going to come up and flood. Similarly, the other lake I was telling you where, we anticipated some bit of desilting, but, here the desilting exercise was seemed to be endless. I mean, we went on digging and we found more plastic. We went on digging more and more plastic. We were like wondering till how deep are we supposed to, go to see uncontaminated soil. So I'm just telling you the kind of challenges we had were like of a different nature, which were we were learning everything on site in a way because it was the first project of its kind, no precedence of nature-based solution. Another aspiration that the city had was that these lakes are meant to capture the rainwater, and they should remain full. They don't should not dry up in the summer, which we thought was okay because then when you get rains, it can fill up again, and that would work as a like a flood mitigation thing. But their aspiration was that if somehow we could keep it kind of full, or at least look full with water on it. So we calculated the evaporation loss and percolation loss, and luckily because we had sewage coming in, we treated that, and the top up of the loss we could make up with that water. Now, when we remove that bund at the base level, the bund being narrow at the top and wider at the bottom. I mean, suddenly there was a huge amount of land which became visible to everyone, because earlier they thought that walking on top of that bund, it was like very narrow, but by the time we cleared it, this was the picture of that area. And they all thought like we were probably going into the lake, and we had to again tell them that we just cleared your bund and that's the area you have. Now, the contractual team there, they were, used to making roads. So they told us, now we have done this leveling, and we have put the line out, and you just give us one section and we'll roll it. So I told them it's not one section, because we have so many things, and every meter, the way we have articulated this is much more complex. So again, the challenge is to sit with them and actually explain what we meant, in terms of design intent, how the revetment would come in to prevent the erosion, how the slopes would get the geo grid happening with the native planting, what the edges, why we need to do all of this. And then, the horticulture guy would come and tell me that you are planting all native species, which here people don't value. You should put some flowers and roses. And I said, for maintenance and for inviting the biodiversity, we need only native grasses. So this is how the whole slope was laid out, and the planting palette was set, and all the native plant material was selected, palleted, and then we put in flowers and grasses and ground covers, and trees, obviously. But the trees, these are pictures from when we just finished. So what you can see is the flowers come in as pollinators, which would then help us to help with the pollination of the fruit trees, which would then attract those birds coming in. So finally, we had a whole series of slopes which were ecological and urban. We categorized the lakes in a manner that we could also get in people to enjoy whatever we are creating. Like I told you, one of the design briefs was to connect all the lakes with a cycling kind of a track, and how we had to respect, the natural areas, clean them up, regenerate the biodiversity in a way that, so the whole job now, I mean, nobody realizes this was the our partner team from CDD, where every inlet was mapped, and the pollution load and the quantum, everything was kind of tabulated. And then we came up with a strategy as to what should we do with what inlet. Can we combine some? Can we do whatever? Divert them. Then a whole series of wetlands at every inlet in every lake. My design team here, we thought, why should the wetlands look similar? Each wetland should be different. So finally, we got these wetlands put in as tertiary treatment to the water sewage water treatment facility that we were building. We worked with natives again to figure out plants which would absorb the nutrients from the water, and also shape them in a way that, so now you can see here the brown water actually becomes blue while as it flows into the lake. And in the wetland we added these little places where people could actually go and understand how nature is helping the lake to keep its own water clean. So this is an aerial shot of the same lake where you can see the wetland and the perimeter of that, and many different lakes with different inlet condition, different wetland designs coming in. Here I should acknowledge the fact that first we could not have done this without our partners. They would first size up the wetland, the chambers, the retention rate for every chamber, and then we would get a drawing like this, which we would then try to modulate into an landscape design working drawing, which would go to site. So learning every aspect of the job was a learning for us. We had a biodiversity expert on the team who told us about, creating shallow shells for birds who would like to nest there, and even juvenile fish finding, spots to hide in the grasses with the stones, all the different species of birds and birds and plants that we need, which plant will attract what, and then also putting in floating islands to ensure that the lake waters remain clean all the time. Some of the areas that we managed to kind of retrieve um, from the shifting of the slum encroachments, which was being done under the court orders. We also tried to put in lagoons and increase the water area. All the jetty points, access points inside the lake were created as floating, and these are the before after series. So you can see the bund on top and the bund at bottom, which was explaining to you, and how the view of the hills has been restored, the new promenade and the trees coming up now. This was from a recent visit when the same and then some other lakes which were bigger and needed a more dramatic kind of expression to get in people also to understand without. So what was earlier kind of a disused and neglected and a unkempt place now has become the city's main must visit point for all the tourists to go. And then now you can see the native planting, the palleted planting plan that we did. We added some of these things to allow people to enjoy themselves when they're there. Children's play areas, some lighting, some before and after. So more or less, and this was that place I showed you under that bridge, which opened up, and we lit up the whole thing. And now it's like the cultural hub of the city. Everybody is down there every evening. You won't believe how many people are visiting that place. And earlier, nobody would dare. Like, imagine that's my team. We were down there, and this is what it used to look like, and today, what it looks like now.
Akash, 5 minutes more.
Yeah. So now the whole city has kind of re-embraced the lakes, which were part of their history. They have Lantern Festival. They do a annual, New Year celebration, and many people have started, kind of preparing these metrics about performance metrics, and then how people feel safer, how people are feeling happier, mental wellness, and even the businesses and your land prices. And of course, we've been winning many awards for this project, including some national and international awards. We got the IFLA APR award as well as the UN Habitat ATA award very recently. We were in Hong Kong to receive that. and that's the team, all of us who contributed. Thank you so much. So basically, we just listened to what the lakes had to say, and that's how we restored them back for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Akash. Very interesting presentations, and in particular this presentation, because having worked in India to raise the awareness of linking water, city, and planning, and to see that at this scale, what it is required is how the smart cities project was integrating nature. So excellent, good example. And the floor would now be open for question and answer. And I would also request my colleague Mariam Imani to join me. And all the participants are requested to post their questions in the Q&A box so that we can pick up the questions. And Kirsty, you're back. And so we are here to take questions. But in the meantime, Mariam, do you have any questions to start the?
Absolutely. Thank you all very much. Very, very interesting. You tapped into so many things. I was just trying to keep up with my own questions. I would possibly, I had a few, 2 or 3 general questions, but perhaps the first thing, Kirsty, it's a very, very interesting sort of approach, setting up those demonstration sites at the scale you mentioned. Part of that enabling environment. I like the idea and all those factors you had outlined, and you had highlighted the importance of the demonstration projects at a scale. This is something perhaps resonates with some of us, maybe, or at this stage trying to set up any pilot test beds to monitor, better understand functionality of nature-based solutions in a real life context. So I was wondering whether by setting up these systems, sometimes it seems like a simple task, but it is not. You face a number of challenges depending on where and how you are going and the scale of it, obviously. So is there anything, any do's and do nots generally you observed, any sort of how to set up these pilots, best practice, lessons learned, I don't know, something like this. Have you produced something like that? And do you think, would you like to reflect on perhaps those aspects of it, because I think it's very important.
Yeah, thanks, Mariam. You're right. Working in real life, it's so much easier to work in a lab somewhere. You don't have people, you don't have dogs, you don't have, all sorts of other things. One of the main problems that we had on our stormwater pond site was that we had a thing called the Cape Flats Dune mole rat. It's like a massive mole that kept digging through our NBS, our infiltration trench. So these are the sorts of things that you have to cope with. But more importantly, you have to fall in line with whatever local policy or regulations there are around not only doing the experimentation, but around how they work with their maintenance crews, for example, who gets involved. How do you liaise with different people when they're trying to think about the monitoring and maintenance of nature-based solutions? So right from the very start, if you're setting up these types of living labs and experimental or demonstration sites, you have to work with the local stakeholders that are going to be involved in all of the day-to-day operations around those sites. And really, I think that's probably been the most challenging thing for us is trying to negotiate who is responsible for what, because even the city doesn't really know that. And when they start reimagining spaces with nature-based solutions or with blue-green infrastructure that's added to existing stormwater infrastructure, for example, how do they manage that? Are there, are their depots enabled for that? Do they speak to one another? We had one incident where we collected litter, solid waste from the site, and put it in bags and put it on the edge of the pond for the municipality to pick up. And we were told by solid waste, that's not our litter. That's stormwater's litter. You have to contact them. So it's this sort of, how do you negotiate all of those different places? So I think the most important thing is really bringing the local authority in right from the very start and working with local residents to try and determine how this demonstration site can be built.
Absolutely. And in a sense, you're introducing a new system that it comes with its own, its own maybe maintenance regime. And then everybody needs to be on board to make sure moving forward, it's going to function as it should.
Exactly.
Suresh, you want to say something? Yeah.
No, I'm okay. I'm just picking up questions. I might move on to the next question, which is basically addressed to Akash. Akash, this is a question by Vic Log. The question is, how did you deal with the government's bureaucracy? Was there a community design and community planning involved?
Yeah, so luckily for us, this was a smart city project in India. The smart city mission had rolled out. So part of that mission, we were mandated to work with local communities, figure out their problems, their aspirations. Like I was telling you, when I talk to the kids and figure out there's no open space for them. So one thing you have to understand, a project like this has to be multidisciplinary, like the kind of team I was telling you about. But at the same time, our objectives also happen to be social, environmental, ecological, environmental awareness, so bringing all of that together into one project without really compromising or compromising anything in terms of ecological restoration processes that we needed to put in place. But most of the time, I've realized that if you do not, bring the community in, the ownership is never there. And what this project demonstrates is how people, they used to come and tell me, you just fix this place, we will guard it with our, we'll not let anybody pollute it, we'll not let anything happen. It's like our place, just do it for us once and we'll always maintain it. So it was more to more appealing to their requirements of open space, while all the ecology and the wastewater treatment and the nature-based solutions, all of that, was not something that was broadly understood, even at the government level, even at the client level. So like I told you, there were huge challenges for us to, push that agenda, so to speak. And we organized a lot of site visits to different cities who were experimenting with one project here or there. But just to kind of, so I think in India, this is the biggest NBS rollout today. And it's won the first prize on the Smart City Mission also. And we did a lake workshop. The Smart City Mission actually brought all their cities to Coimbatore to look at this project. And we had a nationwide kind of a real site visit organized by them.
So Akash, maybe you can give an idea about how long did this project take to reach at this stage? Like, was it number of years, something like that? And also a linked question to this is that how do you transfer or what are the operation and maintenance models for these initiatives? This question is by Marina Dockwiller.
Yeah. So start to finish, we were 5 years total. We started working, like I told you, it took us a lot of time to understand the local issues, local geography, catchment areas, pollution sources, a lot of mapping, a lot of surveys, a lot of visits to the site, a lot of meetings with locals. They have a historic system. So even reading up on the British memoirs, which were prepared. So it was just like maybe 5-6 months was just about informing ourselves as to where we are and what are we dealing with. And then we did a whole series of these, stakeholder engagement workshops where we would, prepare some kind of a broad, like a sketch design and then discuss it with the local communities. And finally, it had to go through tender. So we got down to making serious drawings and the tenders were called. And once the contractors were up and, engaged, they did not have a clue as to what to do. So we had to be there for hand-holding them through the process. I mean, you won't imagine we used to sit on site. I mean, it's a very hot place, and Sujata, my wife, she would like wrap her head and actually supervise every rock being placed on the slopes, and because we had to create that natural kind of a thing. So, I mean, it was a tough thing. And in terms of maintenance, what we did was, luckily, we worked with a smart city mission, which gave us overriding powers to that SPV who was running the show over all the different departments in the city. So, be it water, transport, everything would be sitting on that table. And whenever we would propose anything, the whole, this whole group of people who control the city were there. So any decision had a complete, like a discussion around all the things. So the maintenance schedule also was built into, because it's a nature-based solution, the maintenance pretty simple actually. So we don't have to, I mean, unlike chemical or what Christy was saying, we did not want to depend on machines and chemicals and electricity and all of that. So it's just nature at work. I mean, you just see everything is falling into place and the plants are taken care of. So it's more like a horticulture maintenance situation. But we have trained people, they know which grasses are the correct native ones and what is happening. I mean, they do understand a little bit if the pollution load is increasing. So luckily also, the main treatment is being done by the city, and now the pollution loads are much lesser. And the water, the nature systems help you to keep the water naturally clean. I mean, the extra nutrients are taken up by the plants, and all you do is probably chop them off once in a while, give them a like a cutting if they're growing too big. Otherwise, there's hardly any maintenance, so to speak of. But there is a system now. We also have an operation management for the restaurant, for boating, for parking. So there's a whole lot of revenue that we're collecting, which will get kind of earmarked for doing the maintenance part of it.
Good. Akash, I have another question, which is by Shakil Ahmed, links to urban planning, but I'll combine that with my question, where I will say that, do you think that this kind of a project was a missed opportunity in the master plan or urban plan for the city? Because this is a design project, or whether ever thought that water, city, and planning could go together?
That's a loaded one. See, what happens in India is like, I mean, you can have a master plan, and there are ground realities, what everybody was telling us, that on site we had a problem of encroachment and squatters and slum settlements, which to remove is very, very difficult. Now, what happened in this particular city, the people of the city court as a PIL, and the court took a decision that to clean up the whole lake system, these people, the encroachers, have to be resettled. So there was a slum rehab policy which came in before we came in. This process was, I think, took another 5 years before we landed up to fix the problem. But when we went there, most of the slums were cleared. So, I mean, that's a huge task for any city to engage, and you can understand the political, ramifications of that. And so, luckily, we got a site which was free of encroachment, and we could do what we could do with, the place which was vacated. So we got some extra lakeside land on which we could create these public assets and bring people back to the lake. But yes, it's master planning. They have left the blue and green clear, but unfortunately, ground reality, especially with encroachment, is something that you can't control. So we had to. I mean, I'm just telling you, the question of the master plan not looking at it was not there, because this is an aspiration everybody had. It was just how does it roll out, and we were there at the right time to make it happen.
Thank you, Akash. So I will take one more question from the question and answers section, and I'll pass it on to Mariam if she wants to take other questions. This is a question I'm taking is from Jeenat Niazi. This is regarding Mariam Christie's presentation. regarding Cape Town. How did the co-development process influence the selection of technical solution and the implementation process?
Oh, thanks. So it was an interesting process, because we were working with people that we hadn't worked with before, who actually knew very little about stormwater infrastructure. Most of them didn't even know the stormwater pond was a stormwater pond, but thought it was just a piece of open space. So, and bearing in mind that we did this at sort of quite near the beginning of the COVID-19 time. So we had to delay some of our in-person co-design processes. We held some online workshops together with local residents to try and expose them and show them what the stormwater pond system was about and how it worked, and to try and explain also the type of system that we were imagining in this nature-based retrofit. So it was a process of working with them around what would be possible, very sort of low tech, low skills, mainly hand-based activity, so labor-based activity. And because of that, we came up with this sandbag process, using recycled sandbags, using the sand from site, building the wall, laying over with a sort of Hessian screen, and replanting and doing this sort of very labor-based work around rock dams and all the rest. From an implementation perspective, it was interesting because people were so they did not have work during that period. People were very economically depressed. And so we had to be quite careful about how we selected people to assist with the co-design and co-construction process, and who to select. So we worked with a local representative, a residents representative, and we built over the construction period of 5 weeks, we had 5 different teams helping us with the design and implementation to try and spread that employment opportunity, and we carried on that with the maintenance activities once the construction was complete. So it had to be quite carefully facilitated. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, thanks. So, Mariam, do you have any question you want to pick up from the list, or?
Yeah, well, actually, I've got a burning question, actually, not from the list of questions. If any question anybody left unanswered within the time you've got, we collect them and we respond them
There is a
offline.
last question, if you want to continue, that
Yeah.
is regarding the SOPs for the citywide thing. So what this
Which
is to
one is it?
Akash. I can pick up, because sorry, I didn't take
Yeah,
that with
yeah,
her.
go ahead.
So
Yeah.
Akash, this is the question for you again from Zeenat. She works with development alternatives. What are the qualitative and quantitative indicators being tracked by the municipality, and how has that helped design the management system? Did this lead to a citywide SOP for management?
Okay, so again, I would like to confess that we are designers, and we as consultants can sit and make an SOP. How it gets implemented, unfortunately, we do not have too much control. Now, what happened in this particular case was that we had elections, and then the governments changed and the departments changed, and all the people who were trained, I think, there was a new set of people. So by the time we finished our job and did all the training for the people who were in charge of the project, but very soon there was a change of guard. So now, I mean, those are challenges that as a designer, as a consultant, you can only hope that they'll take it through. And SOPs per se were, like I was telling you, mostly to do with how we want the system to be managed. So like the sewage treatment component, which was the most critical, so that no extra pollution comes in. So the city was also building up their own underground drainage network, which would kind of cater to most of the waste going away and not entering the lake system. but then there were some upstream areas along each of these feeder drains, feeder canals, which would may carry some waste, which the wetlands would be designed to kind of take over. So the maintenance SOP that we charted out for them was more to do with daily maintenance and weekly, monthly, yearly, and then we had several aerator fountains which would be solar operated to keep the aeration on. So a lot of things, and there was also like I told you, we tied it up with the business plan, meaning there were some revenue generating streams. So we brought them together. So there would be an operator or a facility management kind of a team who would be able to charge for these little restaurants, some lease rental coming in, something, and that would then take care of all the people that we needed to be deployed for maintenance. So security, gardeners, local repair, painting here and there. So all of it was made into a nice little submission that we gave to the government. How much of it is being done? There's always I mean, we as designers would want it to be want a lot more to be done, but that's the way it is.
Good, fantastic. So I think I would pass it on to my colleague Mariam. We have only very couple of minutes left to just do closing remarks. We are past the time allocated. So Mariam.
Thank you very much, Suresh. If you have had any question left unanswered, we collect them and we respond to you after the webinar. We pull them together and we do that. Again, I would like to thank to both of our speakers for such insightful, thought-provoking contribution. Very informative. Thank you so much. Well, it shows powerfully that the importance of integrating nature into our cities to tackle a wide range of challenges we face. A number of them highlighted today, as you observed. What stands out for me in particular is the importance of bringing these perspectives together, bringing science, practice, communities, local authorities, and governance side of it together to develop solutions that are not only technically effective for what they've been designed, but also socially inclusive and also context sensitive, particularly in the context of global south. We need to recognize the role of technology and AI gradually in this space. We're hoping to pick it up in our future discussions. And also, again, because one of the missions and visions of this group is to facilitate this conversation and knowledge exchange with global north. Also, there are lessons learned also from this discussion for global north, especially around community-led approaches, resourcefulness under constraint, and integration of cultural aspects into water management for sure. So on that note, then I would like to thank everyone for joining us here together. We hope that we get these conversations going. Watch the space for our upcoming webinar from this working group. And we're hoping to organize more of a South-South and North-South conversation in this space. On this note, I would like to share a few insights from IWA also about the upcoming webinars. As you can see on the screen, another webinar, AI in China's Digital Water Application and Strategic Insight on 12th of May is an upcoming one. You're interested, as we just mentioned, about AI, this is one for you. The other webinar, Advancing NTO and Quantification Towards Mitigation Insights from France, 13th of May. Next one, please. And also the other one, Emerging Advanced Oxidation and Reduction Processes for Water Treatment. Again, on the 19th of May is the other webinar we would like to attend. Also, 20th Leading Edge Conference on Water and Wastewater Technologies. Again, is in Texas in USA, 1 to 5th of June, 2026. If you're aim to attend. That's one for you. And also the other one is World Water Congress and Exhibition in Glasgow from 4th to 8th of October. Certainly our working group will be there to represent, but that's another one in the UK in October this year. And Digital Water Summit in Istanbul in Turkey, 24 to 26 of November 2026. These are the, I suppose, all IWA webinars and conferences in 2026. And also, this is the QR code. If you use this code that you can see on the screen, you get a 20% discount of your, if you want to join IWA as a new member. Join before 31st of December 2026. This is the code to get the discount on your membership. And I think we've covered pretty much everything, Suresh. Is there anything you would like to add?
No, I would like to just thank both the speakers. I think that's and all the participants from joining. And we had over 350 plus people registered at one time. We had 130 plus people attending this. Thank you very much to all, I would just say. Yeah.
And also to our IWA coordinators, Erin and Afia.
Yes, sorry,
thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thank you.